Welcome back, all you beautiful souls, to another episode of Aligned and Alive. I'm your host, Chrissy May, and today I'm sitting with a man who grabbed my attention a few years ago with his powerful and moving messages of inspiration that always ignite a fire within. He is a brilliant mind, filmmaker, and the creator of the wildly successful platform Your World Within, boasting over 200 million streams from his messages of inspiration, over 20 million downloads on his podcast, and a little over 700,000 subscribers on YouTube, all which is a testament to the incredible audience he continues to serve on a daily basis, helping them rise from the ashes and thrive. He is also a speaker and delivered a powerful TEDx talk several years ago titled Running in the Rain, which shares how a simple run in the rain transformed his relationship with discomfort and pushed him to places he never thought possible. He breaks down why the things we are inclined to avoid are often the very things we need the most, and how one's willingness to deal with temporary uncertainty opens the door to unlimited possibility. It's an absolute pleasure to sit and share in conversation today with Eddie Pinero.
Chrissy, what a beautiful intro. Wow. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. We finally made it happen.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you pivoting. So yeah, Eddie was all signed up for the live podcast event. And I said, Eddie, we got to do one-on-one first. Are you okay with that? Sure. Just let me know where to be.
Let's go. Yeah.
It was so nice of you. You're so gracious. Well, certainly you have a gift in creating a vision of hope for those who are navigating challenging moments. So I'd like to have you bring us back to young Eddie and how you evolved into becoming a top motivational leader and visionary.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing in the sense that it wasn't methodical. So the most important thing I learned was what I didn't want to do, because I was a yes person for a long time, right? It was like, how do you stay in line? How do you not screw up? How do you do what's expected of you? And that's what it was. And it was getting good grades, to go to good school, to get a corporate job, to do all these things. And I just remember, being 26 and just being unfulfilled and unhappy, and realizing, like, you know what? You have never taken complete accountability for your life. You've never taken complete control of your life. So why not? Like, why not just once put your back against the wall? And that was sort of the inception of this. Like, it was understanding that I loved being creative. I loved storytelling, and I loved helping people. And so I experimented with music, and I experimented with creative writing and taking the camera outside. And funny enough, the first Your World Within speech or video was, like, the best way I can describe it is an Apple commercial where they'll like dance around and sell you an iPhone without showing you an iPhone. It just feels good, right? I'm like, how do you capture that and give something meaningful to people? And, I'd left the corporate world. I was like, the money wasn't great. And it was like, I wanted to make a little quote unquote Apple commercial. And I wrote one called Ode to Excellence. It was a promise to myself to just try, to just keep going down this rabbit hole and see what happens, because worst comes to worst, like, you can correct, and like there's always going to be a job somewhere for you to get, and so I think that was the turning point, where it was like, if you want to make something of yourself, this is what it's all about. And I wrote that speech, and not only was it so fun and so creative, and I felt like I tapped into this beautiful part of what I love to do, but I started getting messages from people that was like, Ed, that helped me. Like, I'm in a similar spot, or I'm going through something along the same lines, and that's where fireworks was. So it was never, hey, I'm going to be a motivational speaker or speechwriter. I want to make inspire. No, it was just follow what you love to do, continuously push away the things that you don't. And when you find something you enjoy that adds value, like, that's the spot. So it took me a long time to get there, 26, 27, but I got there.
Oh my gosh, it's so powerful that you just chose to honor that voice inside of you, because so many people diminish it and push it away because of, I say a lot of this, like societal programming, what we should be doing, what our parents tell us we should be doing, and I think having that courage to stand up for yourself. I mean, 26, 27 is still very, it's still kind of a scary age, right? Because you're not this full blown adult yet. You're still kind of like you're on your way. So to have the courage to do that at any point in time, and I'm sure the first couple years, did you sit there and say, maybe I should go back to my corporate job or find a different job, or was your journey pretty seamless in the beginning?
No, 10,000% I was questioning it, right? Because like you don't make money for so long, and it's like you start to question the practicality, and then there's like the identity thing too. Like you are the guy without the job, or the gal without the job, or the plan, or the success, and like that hurts. I mean, that's just the ego, and it was like really humbling myself and fighting through that. But you have to, you can recreate yourself. And I was telling a story the other day about driving to work. This was like right before I quit with one of my friends. We would reverse commute from Boston to a city called Worcester in Massachusetts. It's about an hour commute. And every day we'd fantasize about getting a flat tire so we didn't have to go into work. And it's like, at what point does this become pathetic? It's like just because this is what you're programmed to do, to your point, like, or this is what you've always done, you can break free of that. And I think it's the conversation you have to have with yourself. It's like, give yourself permission to stumble around a little bit. So the first couple of years, it was a lot of stumbling around, and some luck. Like there were times where, putting out video after video after video, and like, I swear to you, every time it seemed like the bank account was getting in a very scary situation, I'd get a call and someone would be like, hey, I need help writing a speech, or hey, I have a company doing X, Y, and Z. Will you help me with the video? And it was just like, it's like you just trudge through and you find ways to piece things together.
Yes.
It's
so true. Oh my gosh. I just had this visual as you were saying this, because I feel like it's those moments of magic that seem to happen at the right time that give you enough to keep going. And it's whatever your belief is, right? Whether you're divinely guided, whether it's God, whatever, it's a power greater than us that almost is along the journey with us, that's carrying us through, because we've chosen to step into that space of honoring our soul's purpose and what we're here to do. I feel like when you have enough faith to allow that to unfold, that's when those moments, those little seeds start coming along with you. So it's almost like you're on this journey, not by yourself, but with a force that's greater than you. In a way.
Love that. Yeah. I mean, you can't plan for that.
Right.
Like, that's not something you script out. You just gotta
Exactly.
go. You gotta go.
Because I see that too, when you step into those moments, like, this is what I really, this is where my heartstrings are tugging, this right here. And I feel that that's when life starts gifting you back because you've chosen yourself and your gifts.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of like the visual I was having while you were saying that.
I think that's dead on,
Yeah.
And it's the question a lot of people ask. It's like, whatever the journey is, it's like life is more an adaptation game than a perfection game. And so when you just start, you open yourself up for those gifts to occur. And you give yourself a chance to push against life and an opportunity to build on top of things. It's funny because, being in the YouTube space, a lot of my friends are YouTubers. I get a lot of emails about that. It's like, what gear should I have? How should I map this out? What should I say? And it's like, just start. So many of those questions you'll pick up along the way,
It's so good. And so when someone just starts, say they have the courage to just start, how do you guide someone along that way when they are not seeing that monetary coming in, that monetary exchange coming back? Saying, I'm showing up, I'm doing the work, I'm doing everything everyone tells me to do, I'm sticking it through, I'm staying on my vision.
Yeah.
But there's still no compensation monetarily to support this dream of mine. So how do you offer that advice?
Yeah, I think that one of the best ways I've heard it was an author, Brian Moran. He talks about the valley of despair. And so like there's a point where I'm starting a podcast, for example, let's say someone says that. It's like, okay, first couple months, it's super exciting. And, everything's new and you got the equipment and then, a couple months go by and like, you're not Joe Rogan. There's not millions of dollars pouring in, you ought to understand that that is par for the course. And that is, by the way, the differentiator, because 99% of people go, this is a little bit more expensive mentally than I want to pay. This is a cost, but if you hang in there, that's where things come to fruition. Ryan Holiday calls it passion versus purpose. And I thought that was super powerful. Passion being something that's explosive, that's quick. It's like exciting, invigorating. But when you hit those lulls, you need purpose. You need something to string you through the downs, because it is certainly a roller coaster.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Constantly. Do you feel you're finally at a space right now where you don't feel that anymore, or do you still experience those moments?
I think it changes. It changes. Like contextually, there are certainly highs and there are certainly lows. They're just different. Like in certain seasons, early on it was financially. We're like, that's not necessarily the case now, but it's like metrics or clients or whatever it is, something you're building, things don't go the way you want them to. And it's, the emotive part of your brain wants to throw a tantrum, and it's like, hey, you got to remember, you've been down this road before. There's always a solution. You just got to, the thing is, when you're in the storm, it's never intuitive to pause and be like, there's value here, and I get that 10,000%. But I think if you can train that muscle where it's like, this is uncomfortable, deeply uncomfortable, but there's a solution within an arm's reach. And if you can discipline yourself to find that, usually that's where the best things are.
I agree. And it goes back to what we were talking off camera originally, is what we're experiencing a lot of, which is people, the audience that listen to this podcast, guests that I've had on recently, and we're talking a lot about doing hard things. And what you just said about training your muscle, I feel like when you do more of those hard things, whether it's like a 75 hard challenge or whatever you want to do, it all serves a purpose in being able to, I feel, even just emotionally strengthen yourself. So when those moments do arise, because they're always going to in multiple different forms, whether it's the passing of a loved one, a breakup, whatever that looks like, professionally, you are armed with this inner strength and this armor that allows you to move through it with a lot more grace and ease than not having done these hard things, because people who haven't done hard things in their life have no idea how to handle the obstacles and challenges that come their way. So I think you speak more about that actually on what I was telling you. I was on my walk the other day, and just when I thought I've heard all of Eddie's beautiful messages of inspiration, I came across one that really gave me chills. So I'm going to share it right now if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
He has no idea what I'm ready to share, but
I'm excited.
It's beautiful. And as I mentioned, the conversations, a lot of my guests have been on self-love, surrender, stepping into your power in order to experience what you truly love in life. And so in his deep library of inspiration on YouTube, I came across a gem that gave me chills. The title is Walk Through. And the premise of the message is walk in there like God sent you. So I'd like to take a moment to honor this masterpiece that Eddie created. You say, to put it bluntly, I think life contains more wrong turns than right ones. It's just the right ones, when discovered, unlock some of the most beautiful things imaginable. And while we wade through the streams not meant for us, the temptation or instinct is to get mad or frustrated. What a waste of time, screams the pragmatic brain. 3 full pages of wasted words, 3 months with the wrong person, 3 years doing wasteful things. What we yet to understand is that they weren't wrong at all. They brought us to exactly where we need to be. Our yeses are very often buried under 1,000 no's. That's not punishment, that's just life. And you go on to reference the game of baseball and hitting 300 batting average or becoming an all-star player. And you say how life is harder. Sometimes the losses are more numerous, the rules more convoluted, but its wins are unparalleled. You say, see, life is not a game of getting it right, yet life is a game of showing up again and again. When you get it wrong, you miss, things don't go the way you want to, keep showing up, being bold enough to fail spectacularly, because life is a journey. And to wrap it up, you pose the question actually on showing up and having those inner dialogue conversations many of us experience. Your questions were, Are you not going because it's going to be challenging? Are you not going because it's going to bring you to a state of vulnerability that makes you uncomfortable? Oh, how those conversations will leave you feeling exposed. Nothing is more difficult than the convos you have with yourself, but those are the conversations that contain the answers. It is all happening for you. The now is always of value. So walk through every door that opens like God sent you. See it for the miracle it is. Pieces of a puzzle coming together. The story of a lifetime where the only way to lose is not to go. So good.
You should be narrating those speeches.
Oh
That was
my
beautiful.
gosh. I just get excited when I read it. Because when I read, I've read this like 4 times now. And I get chills when I read it because it's just that next level reminder of yes. And that's what you give people. Like that's what, it's not just hope. It's not just permission. It's why not? Like, why not just start going there? Why not take that leap? It's this, it always moves me every time I allow myself to really embody the message that you're giving because yes, why not? This is one life.
Yeah.
One shot we have. Why not go for it? What do we have to lose? So I would like to build off this and have you offer additional guidance, if you wouldn't mind, on the very topic of having courage to walk through any doors in life, just like God sent you.
Yeah. Man, first of all, that means the world that you say that. And really it's as simple as taking my lesson there and sort of serving it back up to the community. So for me, I found myself in a situation where I was going into rooms with people that were exponentially more successful than me. This is sort of a consistent theme in that period. And like, it's exciting, and it's humbling, but there's also a point where it's like, should I be here? Right. There's the human aspect. It's like, sometimes you see the gap. And someone said, walk in there like God sent you. And I started to think about just how beautiful and powerful and simple that is. No one there, let me put it this way, everyone there deserves to be there. They're there for a reason. And it's leading you to something. Stop looking for reasons that it won't work or problems or like just there's so much value there if you choose to see it. And that ties into like, when you do come across these sort of stumbling blocks to depersonalize them. And they can be as small as like, as a content creator or a podcaster, you put out an episode that you think is going to change the world and maybe it didn't, right? It's easy to get down on yourself or don't personalize that. It's not about you. That's the game. You're playing a game. It's a fun game. It's a beautiful game. There's infinite opportunity there. Show up again, right? Mm-hmm. Be there again. That's where the baseball metaphor comes from. I think there's nothing better representative of life than baseball because if you get a hit 3 out of every 10 at bats, you're an all-star, right? It's a sport designed around failure. And so that's a big thing. Whether you're walking into a room, whether you're by yourself creating something, whether you're exploring something new, give yourself the grace to fail and fail often. It's not personal. It's not about you. It's not a referendum on you. It's life. And if you don't want to fail in that way, then you can go lock yourself in a room and miss out on everything that's out there. But I don't think anyone wants that, So that's what it is. That mental switch of seeing stumbling as a cost, not a problem.
Mm-hmm. Perspective.
Yeah.
And flipping that switch. And I love, you also mentioned, I don't know where it was, but I love this. Everyone says how X, Y, and Z is too expensive. Like, oh, that's so expensive. And you said, is it? Or is it the fact that you haven't developed the skill set needed to acquire that?
Oh, yeah, that hard truth. Right? Yeah.
I love that because it's such a great way of looking at it because other people are able to purchase X, Y, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
That home, that car, that vacation, that watch. But so it's not that it's not expensive. It's the fact that you haven't acquired the skill set to earn the money to purchase that thing.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, sir.
So well said. It was so perfectly said.
It's a tough truth. But I think if you get in that mindset, it's actually a Jim Rohn idea. Is it too expensive or is it you haven't become valuable enough in the marketplace to be able to afford it? And so Sure. Like we can make a million excuses as to why life is hard and why we don't have X, Y, and Z, but there's never a benefit to doing that. So just like if that becomes second nature to point in and say, why can't I do this? Why haven't I done this? How can I do this? You embolden yourself, which is really the name of the game. You know, there's certain people that I know that have been pointing out and blaming the world and, you know, forever. And it might feel good in the moment, but a year from now, you'll be in the same place pointing out and blaming the world because there'll be a new bad guy or problem or boss or government official or whatever, you know? So it's like, it's an accountability thing.
Absolutely. What do you do to help yourself? I mean, obviously, because you're always experiencing next levels, right? You mentioned maybe it's not financial like it used to, but now it's this, it's metrics or whatever. So what do you do to prime your inner being to be able to show up in a greater capacity?
Well, it's just sort of what I do. I feel like it's ingrained into, you know, years and years of like, whether it's good or bad, I'm showing up and I'm doing it. You know, I'm out of my comfort zone a lot now. Like I consider myself a creative and there are certain things that I've had to do that are outside of my zone of genius a little bit. Like, you know, when you're building a team and creating workflows and doing, you know, I don't love that stuff, but you have to enable to really tap into, improve and scale, you know, the creative piece and what you love. And so for me, it's again, thinking big picture, making time to do, you know, the things that you love to do that light you up and understanding that it's a season, you know, this is not a forever thing. And so I think that perspective is super important.
Right. Almost getting comfortable with the mundane.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a way, because like you just said, you don't love certain aspects of it, but as you know, it's a business and those are required. I'm right there right now. I'm just like, I was just having a discussion with Brianne. I'm like, I know I need to put together certain materials and workflows that are going to elevate the podcast and I do women's wellness retreats and everything. And it's like, I just want to create. I just want to sit over and create. But you need to also, I think, get comfortable with those small but necessary details and motions.
I think at least in the short term, right?
For
I mean, there's
sure,
going to be a
for
point
sure.
where
Yeah.
you're doing what you're best at. I'm only doing what I'm best at.
Yeah.
Fine. But like as you're going through these sort of transitory, sometimes you just got to suck it up and do it, you know?
Do the hard stuff.
Yeah. There's this idea like, you know, when you really simplify, and I think that's where, you know, greatness is in simplification, and you have, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 tasks you're doing that day, and you can knock those out and go to bed at the end of the day knowing you've done them. There's a confidence that comes with that, where it's like, even if you're doing something, you're like, like, do I really want to be doing this? But you feel the momentum and you understand the growth, and there's still, you carry some of that excitement with you as you're doing those things. Yeah, it's a momentum game.
And you strike me as someone who's very intentional every single day.
I try to be.
Yeah.
I try to be. Yeah.
How important is it for you to fine tune your circle, like your circle of influence, your circle that you hang out with on a daily basis? Because going through life, right, you're going to have your old set of friends.
Sure.
You're going to have the new set. You're going to have the creator. You're going to have all this. So how do you navigate that whole process?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, that's something I am super intentional about. I want to say over the past couple of years, sort of changed my inner circle and have just grown exponentially. I mean, there's a 1-to-1 correlation with who you're with and, you know, your personal growth and how you act. That said, you know, I still have like, you know, some of my best friends are nowhere near the creative entrepreneurial space, you know, and, you know, we still talk all the time and joke and go out for beers when I see them and, you know, and have a great time. But it's just understanding the time and a place, you know?
For sure. Yeah.
So.
And you don't stay as long sometimes.
Yeah.
I had someone on the podcast last year that said that he's in the personal development space. And he was like, I think it was Bob Proctor, the late Bob Proctor. And he had mentioned like the family members or those friends or whatever that may not be always, you know, the best to be around oftentimes, but you don't go as often, you don't stay as long.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, the best way to navigate that with grace.
I think that's fair. Yeah, that's totally
I think
fair.
so too.
And it's like, you need your brain to shut off from, because I love this stuff. I'm always in it. I'm always thinking about it. And I'm with people, when I'm with people in the same world, that's all we talk about. It's like, sometimes it's beautiful to detach and talk about the Red Sox or, you know, send memes on Instagram. It's like, you got to totally separate sometimes.
I was just going to mention the Red Sox too. I was assuming you're a Boston Red Sox fan.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you not have an accent?
So I moved around a lot. I was a military kid. My parents and grandparents, well, my mom and my grandparents on that side were from there. So they got thick accents. And then my dad's side's Puerto Rican. And yeah, we just bounced around. I grew up in Southern California. I lived in Chandler for a little bit. I was actually born in Japan. Was there for a month, Virginia Beach. So yeah, I wasn't in one spot long enough.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So where's your favorite place you've been so far?
I want to say Scottsdale. It's early, but I really liked South Florida. I think mostly for the weather and just like that feel. But yeah, the people here, the hiking here. I'm all right with 110. You can give me 110. The weather here will be fine. So yeah, I just love the environment here. There's all these masterminds and people are always moving and shaking, and it's just great.
It's so true. I feel like it's become more and more so too. Maybe it's because everyone's moving here from LA. So we get a lot of LA, we get a lot of Florida too, Washington, but there's a melting pot of minds here. I feel like just melting pot's probably the worst word to use, but it is. It's like everyone coming together that has this creative genius, I feel.
It's a really good way to put it. Yeah, there's just that energy.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was walking down getting a coffee the other day, meeting people that are on YouTube and doing all this stuff. I'm like, this is incredible. I didn't see this in 6 years in Miami.
I have to go take a walk around there. Every time I go up there, I don't see everybody on, I don't know, maybe I'm just not hanging out long enough.
Yeah, you gotta walk around the grounds.
It's my old neighborhood too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I lived up there for about 3 or 4 years. So yeah, I get it. There's a lot of action going on.
Yep.
So then what are you doing right now? What's the next thing for Eddie? What's the next creative endeavor?
Yeah, well, I think I look at it in sort of a few different tracks. My heart is always with the original like YouTube podcasting stuff, and I'm always sort of pushing myself to improve that and grow that and just have such an amazing time with it. And so it's a long process building a team of people that I feel like are incredibly talented and hardworking, and so I have that now, and it's really exciting. So I'm sort of looking at that as a new chapter. Mm-hmm. I started an agency, a creative agency called EP Studio, where we help businesses grow through story and video, and that's been really fun. It's been fun seeing from company to company just the different needs and communication and story styles, and then the third thing is called Levels, which is a men's movement and clothing brand, which started from, kind of a heavy story, but my business partner and I both had friends that took their lives that it was like, we're not sad people, right? And it just seems so out of nowhere that it's jarring. And so we're like, we need to create an environment and a community where men can be vulnerable and have these types of conversations. And so we had our first retreat in Sedona, I think about 5 weeks ago now.
I saw that, yeah.
Mm. It was just such a beautiful experience. So we're trying to figure out where to go from there and how to scale that and get that message to as many people as possible. So that's fun and just busy, hands full.
I love the men's retreats. I'd love to touch on that because I actually got invited to speak at one in a couple of weeks. It's a men's group, kind of similar to what you were saying. And I feel like just trying to be more of integrity and, like you said, having an outlet to become vulnerable, to have those open, discussions that maybe and for the male especially, like you can't talk about your feelings. You can't, be open and talk about what you're going through because otherwise you're going to be looked at as like a sissy or, you know what I mean? Like you're not as powerful. So I'd love to hear more about that. Is it something that you guys are trying to open up to more people? Is it a public thing or is it a private setting right now?
Yeah, well, we're trying to open it up to more people. So the first one, it was one of those things where it kind of fits perfectly in the theme where it's like, we want to have an online community, but also I think in-person is super important. And so we're like, how do we do this? Do we plan it out 6 months from now? Again, it's like, no, just put it on the calendar. In 4 weeks, we're doing this thing. And so it was, ready, fire, aim. And it was awesome. But you notice day one, and these, we hedged a little bit in the sense that these weren't complete strangers. They were like friends or business associates and 25 people within our orbit. Mm-hmm. And, day one, everyone's stiff and not really sharing and and then by the end, people are openly like weeping, telling stories that have bothered them since they were children. And it's like, this is so, whatever this is, and I don't even know how to encapsulate it, there's something here that's so powerful. And so absolutely we want to do more of those retreats, but it's like, how do we pinpoint what that is and create an environment where people feel like they have the ability to do that? You know, because you can't even imagine some of the stuff folks just carry around. And to your point, like, when do you dive into that? I don't know. Like, it's a big question.
It's necessary. I mean, I obviously see it on the women's wellness retreats that I host. You know, I've hosted for the past several years, and you're right. It's so powerful when you bring together a like-hearted, like-minded community of people that just want to, you know, share in conversation with, have an open, feel safe, you know, and have an open platform to do so. That it's almost like a magical experience, like you said, because when you mentioned how like they were so stern in the beginning, like, you know, kind of cut off. That's how the women are too, by the way. The ones who aren't as experienced, right? The ones that are just coming in for the first time. And then everyone's like best friends at the end, and they're hugging and they're crying. And now you've created this soul family, this new tribe that you have this outlet to connect with when shit does hit the fan in life, right? And you do have something that comes up and you don't have to bottle it in. You can actually express it openly, because we all know, I mean, our nervous system, that's what happens. It gets destroyed when we keep holding these emotions in and we don't have an outlet to release that. And it's not just working out and doing breath work. It's actually speaking to somebody and connecting.
So true.
That connection is so powerful.
Yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway that you had from that experience?
There were a few. I think one, it highlighted our hypothesis, you know, at least anecdotally, like the emphasis on that. Because me as a creator, you know, I remember year, let's say like 4 or 5, where you're doing okay, but like you're looking at the clock and you're like, why have, you know, it wasn't maybe 7 that I started to get that like hockey stick effect. And that takes a toll on you, you know? And I remember like those are some of the days where I felt so alone. And, you know, I could talk to, you know, maybe a friend or two from college, but again, they're climbing the corporate ladder. They're doing things that are totally unrelated. And so that's, I would say, the biggest thing is it reiterated the need for a community when people are going through things like that. Also, I think like patience. I mean, one of the biggest things is a little bit out there, but I was just so struck by it. You know, Tyler, who's my business partner at Levels, brilliant facilitator. And one of the things he did was we were sitting in a circle and like he would ask a question and no one would say anything. And he would just sit and 10 seconds would go by and 15 would go by. And I'm getting uncomfortable. I'm like, dude, say something, you know, 20, 30, someone would speak. And not only would they speak, it would be this like profound, deep, personal thing that would take the conversation and carry it and then, you know, push other people to delve. And it's like patience. In a weird way, I left Sedona understanding sometimes let life breathe a little bit because there's a lot of really powerful stuff on the other side of that. And again, I don't know necessarily how that's practical and personal, like day-to-day life. Maybe it's just to not feel like you need to solve everything immediately, like let air in. But I was really moved by that. It happened like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, I think another way of experiencing an uncomfortable moment that's providing you a gift in just a way different way. And it's that power of the pause. Because that pause is so, like you said, it's just kind of like, okay.
So loud,
yeah,
right?
It is. The power of the pause. That's a great way of putting it. It is so loud, but it serves such a great purpose. And oftentimes I think it's for everyone to kind of sit with what they're feeling too. Like you had your experience. Come on, let's go. Like, what does that say about you? What is your inner system telling you? And then the other person has a totally different experience. And that's something you cannot get over a phone call or over a text message or over a video chat, whatever. Like it's that personal one-on-one experience. So I love that you guys are doing that. That's amazing. When's your next one set for?
We don't have one yet, but probably in the next couple months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're shotgunning these things right now, so they happen quick.
I think, well, that's the best way though.
Yeah.
Especially when you can just be like, let's go. We need this right now, and everyone just is on that same mindset. Like, we got to do this.
Yeah.
But that next one's going to be way different than this last one. I guarantee it.
I bet it will.
And that much more powerful.
Yeah.
It's another way to you're stacking your emotional and spiritual health right now. We think of it that way, right?
Yeah.
Everyone thinks of physical, just going into the gym and lifting weights, but this is a different way of like growing that your inner, that's the inner work. It's what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's funny because it almost feels like a cliche, like mindset, but like, what do you have without that?
Mm-hmm.
It's so critical to just be in a place where, the way you look at the world and the way you look at yourself within the world is through a positive, productive lens. I think getting there is so important.
And I bet it helps you grow in your own creative genius, right? I'm sure where do you get most of your content? Is it from an experience that you've gone through, are going through, or have seen somebody go through? Like, where does most of your inspiration come from when you do sit behind the mic and just let it all go?
Just life. Yeah. It's like you condition yourself when things happen, good or bad, to really observe them and ask why. So it's just, anytime I'm like, there's something there, I'll write it down in Evernote. But there are times where like I'll hear a lyric in a song or read a passage in a book. Jim Rohn's a perfect example. There's like 10 times I'm like, that's incredible. I'm going to expand upon that, and dive into a Jim Rohn quote. So it's, everywhere. But I think it's the beauty and the value is it teaches you to be aware and say, this happened. Here's how it's good. Here's the value you can extract, and it amazes me too. Like the audience is so broad. Usually when you have a niche, it's like, a smaller audience. But there's just so many, athletes, entrepreneurs, mothers, like just so broad. And you can take any situation, and I find that rule is valuable in everyone's life. The context is what changes. Mm-hmm. So if you can tell a story that makes people say, okay, how does this apply to me? There's just so much overlap. And I really enjoy that. I think that's something that's really special and fun about what I do, is getting to have conversations with people from all walks of life. It's fun.
I bet you've had some incredible experiences over the years with people reaching out to you. Has anyone reached out with going through, like you brought it up earlier, contemplating deep situations like ending their life or something like that, but you were able to somehow, some way talk them off the ledge? Have you gone through that?
I've gotten emails that I couldn't even read because I'd cry. I mean, there were people who said they were holding a gun in their hand and heard a speech and rethought. I mean, just stuff that's like, and you realize this is so much bigger than like YouTube statistics. It's so powerful, and it's a motivator. It's a why.
Did that happen early on in your career, or did it happen when you started gaining traction and started really growing?
Like at scale? Or
like when you started experiencing people reaching out to you, sharing those deep conversations? Or
well, the first time I heard it was the first video. And that's when I was like, I mentioned that sort of light bulb moment. It's like, not that many people cared when I was covering John Mayer with my acoustic guitar, right? It's just the way of the world. And I'm like, this is so meaningful, and it's reaching people. And so, if I can find a way to do that in a way that I love, and that last part's just as important, because if you don't love it and you're not excited about it, you're not going to want to do it for a decade. If I can find that, there's something there. And so, it's always connected. And I think that's really what's pulled me along, is just being able to deliver that perspective.
Well, and clearly helping people along the way. That's the reason I asked that question, because I was wondering if it gave you that jolt early on, like, oh my gosh,
10,
I did not expect someone to reach out and say that to me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yep. Incredible gift, but one that I believe you were divinely guided to do. I mean, that's just an incredible space to be in, because like you said, you're not just a YouTuber. You're not just, a content creator. Like, you are truly helping people shift to a totally different state of consciousness. I mean, that's powerful.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
It really
it's
is
a blessing. It
yeah,
really is.
absolutely. So then what does Eddie do to have fun, to get yourself out of this? Because it can oftentimes obviously be heavy and serious. And so
Sure.
what do you do to finally like lift that whole heaviness in order for you to be able to open up again, to circle back and do it all over again?
Yeah, which is funny you ask, because I am learning and seeing in real time the value of completely shutting off for a day or two, So I've been doing a lot of exploring Scottsdale, hiking with friends. I love songwriting, which is like amazing because there's just no pressure now. I do it for me, and it's just therapy. Love being outside. So yeah, we're in a spot now where I look around and these mountains, it's unbelievable. So I'll just take a walk for a couple hours,
Oh my
find a
gosh.
hike, and yeah.
Every day. That's why you're here though too. We do live in such a great area. We were just talking about that earlier. It's like, look around. This is paradise.
It is.
It really
Literally
is.
Paradise Valley.
Oh my, seriously.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have a few questions to ask you if you're ready for it.
Hit me. I'm
It's
ready.
a fire round. I name everything like it's kind of silly, but I named this one Getting Educated with Eddie. And they're just questions that the first thing comes to your mind.
Okay.
You can expand on it to whatever degree you want to. But just for everyone to get to know you a little bit deeper.
Okay.
That's all right. All right. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. What was your very first job?
I worked at a marina, tying up boats and putting like gas in boats.
So fun.
It was cool.
Do you miss that? Like being near the water?
It was just fun. So I was like 12 years old. My grandfather worked at the college that had a marina. And so they kind of dropped me off. Like he would drop me off before work. And I was old enough to contribute, but I was mostly just like, because it was college kids that worked there. So I would hang out with them and they were super nice and it was fun. So I quote unquote worked, but I was kind of,
Where was it at?
causing trouble and having fun. Born Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mass Maritime Academy.
So summers only.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was
Clarified.
technically that was my first job.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
a good first job.
Yeah.
What books have shaped your career the most?
Oh man, there's a couple. Nonfiction, I want to say Essentialism by Greg McKeown. For the sole reason, this is a perspective shift. It's like we think growth is more in acquiring, and it's like, what can I do to get A, B, and C? And it's just the simple idea: stop, pause. What do you have that you don't need? What can you get rid of? You're carrying too much, from literally your closet, which you need to go empty out, to the things you're doing every day that don't align with where you need to go. To me, that epiphany was just like so true. That's what's getting in the way, not what I don't have, but what I have but don't need. So that's big. And then fiction, I think The Martian is so good. I think every entrepreneur should read The Martian, about an astronaut stuck on Mars, and just how resourceful he is, figuring out just day by day how to stay alive, using limited resources that he has, but also, and just as important, like keeping a sense of humor about it. Sometimes I get over serious, and I just love how even when the world was collapsing around him, he's just kind of self-deprecating, making jokes. And I'm like, that's inspirational.
It's a clever way of looking at it, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't take life too seriously. You realize that the worst isn't really the worst anyway. And if it is, have fun while you're going out.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to have to read that book. I haven't read that yet.
It's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who has made the most influence in your life?
Man, there's just been so many people. I can say like my family for having my back. I think life would have been exponentially harder if I didn't have their support, particularly when I wasn't feeling great. My grandfather, when I was a kid, for sort of instilling some values in me, and he would say things like really early on, like talking about, he was an admiral in the Navy, so he met with some big shots, world leaders, and I would ask him about it and be like, kid, they put their pants on one leg at a time just like you. And it was like, wow, I guess that's true, or you're always stronger than you think you are. And just some of these little things that stuck with me. Musicians, like I mentioned John Mayer, I think he's been an inspiration because he combines technical mastery and also the ability to write a pop song. I think like when you take two things and make them your own, in any different realm. That's so special. Jim Rohn, because he's a master of taking complex ideas and making them simple and easy for people to implement. Yeah, the list could go on and on and on.
But there are so many greats when you think about it.
Yeah.
That's a great list. I love that you named your grandfather. It sounds like he had definitely an impact on you, at least gravitating towards that motivational mindset of not giving up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. Do you have siblings? Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a little brother and a little sister, oldest.
Oh.
Yeah.
Paving the way.
That's right. That's right. They're doing great.
What is the hardest challenge you've ever had to overcome so far?
I think the initial career change was big. Yeah, just mentally switching from something that was predictable and I felt like I was doing the right thing to being completely out on my own. That was definitely one. I think being so immersed in what I'm doing, like some of the social and relationship sacrifices were tough, particularly at the time. And then I think physically, maybe some of these long runs. I did a 500-mile relay through the desert with some friends, and that was tough. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
How long did it take you to do that?
Oh man, what did it take us? A couple days.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Here in Arizona or just throughout?
Definitely West Coast, definitely desert. So, okay, first trip was through Texas to Louisiana. Second one was through Arizona. We ended in Phoenix. That's all I remember. I remember staying in the hotel and just laying there and being like, I'm not leaving for 24 hours.
I'm surprised you weren't in the bathtub with like ice all over you. My body would have locked up. That's great.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment.
Well, thanks.
What is the most embarrassing moment of your life so far?
Oh, man.
Let's get real, Eddie.
That's a good question. I mean, I can tell you in the past 3 days, someone posted a video of me dancing at a Persian festival. That was just painful.
They just had one here in Scottsdale. Did you go to that?
That's the one, yeah.
I missed that one.
Oh my God.
That's funny.
It was fun though. It was an amazing time. But
we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, the guy's not a dancer. I'll put it that way.
What is your proudest accomplishment?
I think being able to hire a team. That's really exciting to me, and all of them are like really in love with the process and the things that they're doing. And so I feel like just creating an environment where people can do what they love and grow in the same way that I did and want to continue to do, I just think it's a really, really cool thing. It's like taking an idea and then it comes full circle,
Right. It's very special. How big is your team?
About 7 people.
It's quite a bit.
Oh.
Yeah, that's neat. What is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? It could be an investment of time, money, energy.
I mean, it depends how you look at it. Theoretically, it could be, this mic that I've been using forever, best $400 I've spent. I think an investment into YouTube, an investment into learning things like audio engineering, because I don't do that anymore, but just being able to have really beneficial conversation with people that do that, really guide and direct. Yeah, when I look back, I'm really proud that I learned so much the way I did and was a jack of all trades. I think, like we talked about, it's not an ideal, but being able to understand video editing, audio editing, even songwriting in a way, it comes through with cadence and how some of these speeches are edited and put together. Like it's just, I wouldn't give it up because I can help have these conversations and really guide the direction of things.
So good. Well, it's like you can teach it now and you actually know every ounce of it, every bit of it. There's so much value in that.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Exactly.
What can people expect from you next?
Hopefully more great content. I want to be able to add value and inspire people in new and innovative ways and make people think a little bit differently. And remind them that, change is not some big, scary, far off thing. It's often right in front of us. And so we just have to change the way we're looking at life.
And you are a change maker, that's for sure. And finally, what is one final thought you want to leave our listeners with? If there's anything you could say.
Yeah. let's go with the Nietzsche quote. I love that quote. He says, those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who couldn't hear the music. And I think as you're doing anything in your life, small, medium, or big, right, remember that you're the one bringing it into existence, which means that no one around you will see it or understand, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay being the quote-unquote crazy person taking a nothing and giving it life. I think that should provide some reassurance and confidence.
That's so powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, and I can't wait to finally have our live podcast event. We might do it here, actually.
Oh, nice. This would be a great spot for it.
Yeah, we're thinking maybe a little bit different location, but it'll be close to you. So
cool.
I appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
Thanks
so
for
much.
the convo. This was awesome.
For more on Eddie, you can just check the show notes. All the information we listed there. Your website is, I know I've been to it.
EddiePinero.com.
Oh, it is EddiePinero.com. How fitting.
Yep.
EddiePinero.com. And of course, you can follow him at Your World Within on Instagram and YouTube.
Perfect.
Thank you.